And we continue our conversation on the Haitian migrants in Texas at that border. Joining us now is Haitian American immigration expert Pierre-Outerbridge, also joined by Julio Rivera, editorial director at Reactionary Times. So Altagracia, we'll start with you. Can you tell us about your family's journey here from Haiti?
Well, I mean, I can come out now, right? I think a lot of Haitians come here any way they can. I have been here for 25 some years. We came here as tourists, as a lot of people do. I'm not ashamed to say, and we overstayed and thereafter legalized our status. A lot of people do that. Whether or not the system welcomes that process is a different story.
All right, and Julio, we've had this conversation actually earlier today. We just welcomed thousands of Afghan refugees despite the COVID protocols claimed by Homeland Security. What's the real reason, in your opinion, that Haitians are being treated so poorly at that border?
I think that this was just because it's an influx that wasn't basically planned for. There's been a lot of upheaval, obviously, as a result of the earthquake and the elections, and there's a lot of political disarray right now, obviously in Haiti. But just to give an example, in the lead right up to this segment, you talked about the gentleman John Renault, who's going to New Jersey. He said that he moved to South America several years ago and is now making his way into the United States. On which grounds would he qualify for political asylum? The big issue is with the influx that we're already dealing with, and I mentioned this previously, from the Northern Triangle countries and all the problems that they're having there and in Mexico, we can't really continue to support people pouring into this country. Obviously, with the COVID issues that we're having. Now, the difference with the Afghanis is these are people that risked their lives to assist in the effort in this 20-year war. They were logistical support. They were translators. There were people that were assisting the Afghan government, and they're marked enemies of the Taliban. These are people that if the Taliban identifies the fact that they were helping the Afghani government against the Taliban, these people are going to be immediately murdered. No such danger presents itself to these Haitian migrants, and they're referred to as migrants. What they really are is they're illegal immigrants trying to come into the United States without permission. And I think people have to be clear about that. It's a different designation, between the Afghanis and the Haitians right now.
And Altagracia, what's your response to that, knowing the journey that you and your family took to get here?
Well, I think my heart just skipped many beats hearing this, right? It feels personal to me. I am very, very Haitian. I'll say that as an immigration attorney, the way to get asylum is to show up at the border and seek it. So there's nothing illegal happening here. That's the exact way to get asylum. So you show up and you ask for it. You get an NTA, notice to appear, meaning you're in removal.
But you have to have a valid case for it.
If I may continue, clearly, but you need a chance to prove that, right? It doesn't get decided by a border agent. That's not a judge, right? You get to have legal process, and there's no other way to seek asylum, right? No real other way. You can seek it within a year of getting here, but the proper process is to show up at the border and say, I'm seeking asylum. Then, as is happening recently, you get released and you get an NTA, notice to appear, in a removal proceeding, right, within 60 days. That is the proper way. So there's nothing illegal quite happening here. This is the process to get asylum.
Yeah, entering the United States without permission is in itself illegal. But what I'm saying is these people do not have a legitimate case for true asylum. Coming to the United States because you would rather be in the United States because you would have more economic opportunities, or because the United States is obviously a nicer place to be, quite frankly, than where they currently are coming from. That's not a legitimate case for asylum. I understand what you're saying. You're making a process argument, and yes, to a certain extent, you are correct. But we do have laws in the United States, and you can't just enter the United States and be expected to be, greeted with open arms necessarily. Like I said, there is a real difference between what's going on with the Afghanis right now and with the Haitian migrants, and with obviously the problem that's perpetual that we're probably going to still be talking about 10, 15, 20, 50 years down the road with Northern Triangle illegal immigrants, and obviously the ones that come up through Mexico?
Well, I mean, respectfully, no human is illegal, right? This is exactly the process for asylum. Exactly that, right? You and I would need legal process, right? A border agent doesn't get to decide whether or not you come in, and they're not quite here, right? They are at the border, right? At that point, they need legal process. That's exactly what asylum is. It has always been that. Right? One way is to enter and to seek asylum within a year of being here. Another way is to come to the border and say, I'm seeking asylum. Then you get processed.
Yeah, but what's the definition? How do you qualify for asylum? What qualifies
that has to be decided by a court, right? You get a hearing.
No. But what is the criteria? I understand it has to be decided by a court, but what is the criteria that qualifies someone to stay?
Correct, but that gets decided later. It's not by a border agent like you and I deciding.
No. Go back to
No. It's not. No, it's not. No, I do this for a living. I do this for a living.
So let's be respectful
just because of economic
on both
issues?
ends.
No, they
Julio
usually don't.
and Altagracia, I want you both to be respectful of each other.
No,
it is fair to debate, but we all can't talk at the same time. Okay.
I believe I was talking, right?
Yes, Julio, you asked Altagracia a question about who qualifies for asylum. So Altagracia, please respond, and then Julio, you will respond thereafter.
Absolutely. So you have to have some credible fear of persecution based on certain categories, your race, your religion, your sexual orientation, right? You belong to a group and you have a credible fear of persecution. That still has to be decided by a court, whether or not, right, that it's persecution when you're in Chile, right, because you're Black, right, because you're too dark, right, whatever group you belong, you get to decide. And the immigration courts, as we know, if I may, the immigration courts are very, very well designed to deny that credible fear interview. So they do deserve a credible fear interview.
Julio?
Okay, well, again, I go back to, these people are not like the Afghanis. They have a credible fear of being murdered by the Taliban. No such fear exists for these Haitians. They're not being persecuted by the color of their skin because Haiti is a predominantly Black country. Right now there's an upheaval politically. These people, if they're seeking political asylum, what they should have been doing is fighting right now, because there's going to be another set of elections coming up in the next several weeks. So, I mean, if they don't have the legitimate political argument, they don't have the legitimate credible danger argument either. So this is just, again, people coming into the United States, trying to sneak in and then, hoping to stay through what's really a really broken immigration system right now. And these negative optics, are probably going to pressure ICE and pressure the immigration courts into probably granting these people, I would say, leniency that they don't necessarily qualify for. But meanwhile, we have over 1 million people that are on hold from actually getting American citizenship, because there's a logjam because of the issues that we're dealing with the illegal immigrants. So it's not really in America's best interest to keep on entertaining, giving people, asylum hearings and giving them court dates when we already know that they don't qualify for asylum. These are not true people that would be in the category normally that we would say, okay, they're coming from a country where they're going to be murdered. There's political issues. There's none of these things exist for these Haitians.
All right, Altagracia, we got to get Altagracia, Julio. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. So let's get your response.
I feel like I'm getting stabbed as Mr. Julio speaks, right? But we don't get to decide on this interview whether or not somebody has a credible fear. Right, we certainly know that people of darker skin are not welcome in these countries either, right? We know that. I know that from doing asylum work, right? So we don't get to decide that. Just like when someone is accused of a crime, you and I don't get to decide whether or not they could have committed it or should have committed it. The United States is a nation of laws. The law says you can come to the border and seek asylum, and you get to make your case. The immigration court is very much prepared to say, no, you haven't made your case. So I'm not sure why we're deciding ahead of time that people don't qualify for asylum.
All right, Julio, Altagracia, very heated debate, but for obvious reasons. I mean, these are folks that look like us, and the treatment they are receiving nonetheless is it's disgusting. Thank you both for joining us.